now we have another interesting talk all about identity. So we have Sebastian Rodriguez from Polygon ID, and his talk is going to be about private proof of uniqueness in the era of digital identity. So I would like a nice warm round of applause, please.
Hello, my name is Sebastian Rodriguez. I am the product lead for Polygon ID. And first of all, sorry, because the title is not the one that you have in the agenda, so I didn't want to cheat or fake. But I think this is a topic that is at a lot of interest to me right now, and I really wanted to use the occasion to discuss it. So I'm going to change the tone a bit because I'm not from the infrastructure side. I'm not going to talk about blockchain. I'm coming from the world of identity, and identity is bigger in many ways than blockchain, right? Identity uses blockchain as a component, but the world of decentralized identities and credentials is a different one, I would say. Also, my second apology is because I'm not going to explain anything about it. So I'm going to take for granted that you know something about decentralized identities, verified credentials. And if you don't, sorry very much, you can contact me later, right? But I have done that pitch several times, and I think at this point people more or less know what decentralized identities are, what verified credentials are, and how this works. So I'm going to jump into a more specific, very concrete topic about private proof of uniqueness in the era of digital IDs. So let's start with, okay, yeah. So this simple act that you, just try to remember the last time you presented your national ID somewhere for some reason, right? And instead of thinking about what you do, think about what the other side receives or what they are doing it, right? They get a number of things with your national ID, right? When you present your national ID, you are identifiable, you are unique, you are accountable, and you are eligible, right? These are all the things that they get just like once with a single identifier. Why is that? It's because that identifier is unique and permanent to your person. You can lose it, you can throw it, you can burn it, but if you go to the government, it's going to give you the same number again and again. You cannot detach yourself from that number. That number travels with you for the rest of your life, and that is the thing that creates the accountability. Anything you do under that number is going to be traced and tracked for the rest of your life. It's in the records, systems can talk to each other. There is a number of properties from this unique identifier, which is something super simple, but it's been with us in our lives for a lot of years. Why is this a topic that deserves any attention right now? Is because we are moving to the digital IDs, right? I don't know if you are aware of the European Union approved the digital wallets just weeks ago. All the ADAS framework coming into effect in 2026. There is 107 countries now working on their digital IDs initiative. So very soon, this digital ID is going to be digitalized, and every single person will have their own unique identifier forever and ever, right? Yeah, I know that you already have it. You already can present it in some services. Some governments can accept it. But there is another force, which is we are approaching a crisis of trust in the internet, right? You think about ChatGPT, deepfakes, fake information, right? We are going to approach a crisis of trust. So the frequency that you will be asked to present credentials, that you will be asked to show that you are a human being, that you are unique, right, is going to increase. So this action of showing your ID on the digital world is going to become more and more prevalent, right? We have the deepfakes on one side, but we also have regulations like MiCA and others that affect the blockchain industry, also forcing us to present more about ourselves. So now, letting aside all the credentials, right? KYC, all these things, there is a lot of credentials that you can present to create trust. But I'm very interested in this one, in the proof of uniqueness, right? Because the proof of uniqueness can be of two types. I like to introduce the idea of a context-based proof of uniqueness, right? Your national ID is a universal proof of uniqueness. You only have one, right? If you go to one shop or to another shop, you are always presenting the same number. It doesn't depend on where you are using it, it's always the same. A different approach to that would be a context-based unique ID, which is a novel idea. A context-based unique identifier is a unique identifier in that context. Let's say for a session or for an interaction. So imagine that I go to an application. That application creates a session with me. I provide a unique identifier to that application. If I go to another application, I provide another unique identifier. But you may ask, okay, how do these applications know that it's unique and you cannot just create another one and another one and another one? Well, because that context-based unique identifier is based on a real unique identifier, on a real credential, right? So there are some properties that must be true for this context-based unique identifier. First, it needs to be cryptographically derived from the real permanent unique identifier. Second, for the same context, you cannot produce a different one. So if I'm an application and I give you, my session number is 1 to 3, if you produce a unique identifier from your national ID, you cannot produce more than one. Every time you try to produce a unique ID for my session, it's going to come up the same, right? So you cannot have two. And third, you need to prove me somehow, and somehow means zero-knowledge proofs in this case, right? Or cryptographically in any other way, you need to prove me that that unique identifier that is context-based was derived from a valid national ID or some other type of uniqueness credential, right? So if we meet these three properties, we can have like a different national ID for each application. That is valid, that is unique, that is legally binding if you want, if the law will allow to that, but doesn't compromise my privacy. Why is this so important? Because when you think about what are the sources of our uniqueness, you have two types. The type that we all know, which is database identifiers, like in your national ID, right? And then you have your biometric identifiers. That's the other source of uniqueness, right? I think most of you probably know projects like WorldCoin, right? That will scan your iris and give you a unique hash. There are others doing the same. And biometrics is an industry that is growing 2 digits in the last 3 or 4 years. And the thing is, they both work. They both give you something that is unique to your persona for the rest of your life. But there is a key difference. You can decide if you want to show your database number, identifier, your document ID to someone. You cannot decide if you want to show your face in a certain event, right? So your biometric identifiers can be verified without your consent. Also, who is behind these identifiers matters a lot. Is a government where you have some voting rights, or is a company that keeps these things as an asset, right? So depending which way we go, and this is why I think this topic is so interesting for me, is we can go to a real dystopia or something more acceptable, right? Or something, or a world I would like to live. So if we go for universal unique identifiers, which is an identifier that is me forever and ever, I cannot detach and it's always the same, this is not good, right? This is digitalizing the status quo, and it's not perfectly good because people can trace your activity across applications, right? They can, if you're presenting the same ID to everyone, they can see what you are doing. And also they can ban you from all services at once. If we go for a context-based identifiers, I think in both cases it's quite acceptable. I would rather go with a database identifier that is controlled by a government where there is some democratic process and is considered to be a service rather than a company, right? Where we shouldn't go is to the biometrics universal identifier, because that is recipe for dystopia. That is, you could have, think about the Chinese social scoring, right? You could have your identifier and everything you do, every piece of reputation or activity is stuck there forever and you cannot detach it from you. So Okay, so how that looks in Polygon ID, because I guess at some point I need to talk about what we do. I really like the topic and I like to discuss the theories behind, but we have implemented something for this. And if you want to try it out, you can see it working, right? I think we did some internal demos when we tried the concept. We created this nullifier ID where, well, you can see the property here. We have a tool that is called Query Builder. The Query Builder is a UI, you don't need to do any code, that will allow you to create a query to the user, right? To ask for credentials. And you can create a query to say, okay, present me a proof of uniqueness. That is based on this type of credential. So it's based on a national ID, it's based on a passport, it's based on something that is a source of uniqueness, right? And you can, as you can see here, you can say, check the proof of uniqueness, and this is the number is the session, right? So you will create a context-based proof of uniqueness that is completely private. So basically what you're asking to the user is a unique identifier in the session, blah, 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 that is derived from a national ID credential issued by the government. And the protocol will check that plus all the other things. It will check the validity of the schema, it will verify the credential ownership, the keys, everything is in the protocol, everything is included in a big zero-knowledge proof that takes care of everything, right? But I think this is the implementation part. If you want to try it, I think I can give you some examples, right? Like, how can I use this? Okay, imagine a concert webpage, right? You want each user to buy only one ticket for each concert. Then each concert will have a different session, right? So you can ask for a proof of uniqueness. In each concert, there's going to be a different context, so the proof of uniqueness is going to have a different ID for each concert, which is not absolutely necessary, right? But it prevents civil attacks, it prevents people getting a lot of tickets without them disclosing any personal information, without them disclosing their national ID or anything like that. But there is something more interesting than the concert, I think, is the DAO example. Because in the DAO example, it's the same case. You can say, okay, it's only one vote per proposal. But if you use a different context for each DAO, you cannot trace the votes of a single individual. Because if you are offering a pseudo ID or something like that, in every single vote is the same, you can see that that individual voted for this in this vote, voted for this in that vote, and you can correlate things, right? In this way, you can in the DAO example, I think is very beautiful because you can prevent civil attacks, you can guarantee one person, one vote, you cannot trace what the person voted across different voting, right? Everything is completely private, but it's also at the same time completely trusted because it's based on a government issue credential, right? Our mission in Polygon ID is not to become the source of trust. We don't want to be another WorldCoin, we don't want to be another KYC provider, we don't want to be a credential of issuers, issuer of credentials. We are creating the rails, we're creating the methods to share all this information, to convey this trust from the sources of trust to the applications in the most private preserving way. And with this, well, this is my final reflection, right? I think we will face the crisis of trust. I think we will be pushed to show verifiable data about us more often, right? And the way we decide to implement these mechanisms will lead us to one scenario or to another, right? I think we have seen what happens when we have government sponsor reputation systems. We have seen what happens when we can be traced across multiple applications, and we have seen what happens when our biometrics characteristics can be verified with our consent, right? With facial recognition and other things. So hopefully we will choose the right way. We are trying to make that right way possible in Polygon ID. Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you very much. That was a really interesting talk. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Hi, thank you. In most of the self-custodial wallets today, one of the most common ways for users to lose their funds is poor secret recovery phrases management. I know that Polygon Wallet also gives that option to restore access to your identities. Now with funds, it's tough enough to lose them if you lose SRPs. If you put your identities in a wallet that allows you to manage your identities through an SRP and you lose that and people can end up using your own identities, what does Polygon Wallet do to mitigate that?
I kind of speak for the Polygon ID wallet, which is the identity wallet, right? But I guess the answer is valid for both types. We started being maximalists in the self-sovereign identity model, where the user keeps absolutely everything for himself, is self-custodial, et cetera, right? That's our current model. If you download our wallet, the identity keys and the credentials are all in your wallet, right? I have to say also that experience have shown us that doesn't help for adoption, and that's not what really people want. So now in release 7, in a couple of weeks, stay tuned. There is a big change in how Polygon ID works and the flow and everything, but we are moving one step away from that. We are keeping both models, right? We will support the full self-custodial implementation, but we want to support other alternatives because we see that this is really hindering adoption. So the first step is to move away the responsibility on credentials. We plan to store credentials on decentralized storage, right? So you have a multi-device experience, and you can see your credentials everywhere, and you don't lose them as easily. And then, not in this release, but probably in next releases, and now I'm giving away a bit of the roadmap, but we're going to integrate it with some HSM, MPC, and other type of solutions to keep the storage of the identity keys outside of the wallet, right? And abstract the authenticators. So you can have multiple authenticators. You will be able to manage your credential from multiple devices. You will be able to sign into your identity wallet using your Google account, right? So in the end, we still feel committed with all the flavors of it and the fully decentralization of it, but I think for adoption you need to remove some responsibility from the user.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. Unfortunately, we don't have any more times for questions. If you want to ask him a question, you will be able to find him somewhere in the conference. And a big, huge round of applause, please.
Thank you.